When you think of medicine during the Middle Ages, you might conjure up images of bloodletting by leeches, exorcisms, or doctors in strange masks. During the time between the fall of the Roman Empire up until the Renaissance, scientific and technological advancement came to a relative standstill in Europe. But during this period, the Islamic world was experiencing a golden age of science. Scholars from across the globe were flocking to Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid Empire. There, from the 8th to the 14th centuries, they would make spectacular advances in the fields of mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and, most especially, medicine. While medical practice in Christendom was based in little more than superstition and prayer, physicians across the Islamic Empire were practicing evidence-based healthcare and building the foundation of modern-day medicine. Shortly after the death of Muhammad in 632, Muslim armies began to conquer neighboring territories. This period of territorial expansion continued over the next century, so by the time the Abbasid Caliphate came to power in 750, their empire stretched from North Africa to Persia. But ruling over such a massive territory was far from easy. The people who inhabited these lands were diverse in language, religion, and culture, and trade within the empire was burdened by these divisions. The 7th Abbasid Caliph, Al-Ma'mun, recognized this problem and saw its solution: science. Al-Ma'mun believed that by studying the natural world, humans can make discoveries that would make their lives better. The exaltation of science was more than just a practical matter, though. It was seen as a religious obligation. Many Muslims believe that by learning about the natural world, one can come closer to understanding God. The holy scriptures of Islam, the Quran and Hadith, encourage mankind to seek truth by studying nature. The scientific advancements of the Muslim world were charged both by pragmatic and pious justifications. But what did Al-Ma'mun do to promote scientific growth? This was largely accomplished by two methods: centralizing knowledge and standardizing communication. Al-Ma'mun began a period known as the translation movement, where he commissioned the collection and translation of all scientific texts from across the known world. He also financed the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, an intellectual center where scholars from across the globe could gather to study, debate, and build on their discoveries. And to allow these findings to be communicated, he made the Arabic language standard across the empire. Unified by a common language, new scientific discoveries could be shared from Khorasan to Cordoba. The spread of knowledge was made all the easier by the use of paper, a technology that Arab scholars brought back with them from China that allowed for the mass production of books. But among all scientific knowledge, none was so prized as medicine. Life for many during the Middle Ages was nasty, brutish, and short. A minor infection that might be little more than an inconvenience today could be life-threatening at the time. So any ancient wisdom on how to treat disease and improve the duration and quality of life was highly treasured. In addition to this, many believed that finding medical knowledge was a quest given to mankind by God. In one of the Hadith, it is written that for every illness, Allah has provided a cure. We just have to discover what that cure is. The translation movement led to the rediscovery of the Hellenistic tradition of medicine from ancient Greece. And among these works were the writings of the Roman doctor and philosopher Galen. Galen believed that the body possessed four fluids or humors: blood, black bile, phlegm, and yellow bile. Disease was believed to be caused by an imbalance of these four humors, and treatments centered around restoring their natural harmony. Humoral theory was swiftly adopted into Islamic medical practice, along with Chinese and Indian understandings of medicine. These various traditions mixed together and combined with folk remedies and traditional Islamic medicine to produce an understanding of human anatomy and pathology that was centuries ahead of Europe. For example, the Muslim physician Ibn al-Nafis correctly recognized that blood passed from the right ventricle of the heart to the lungs before arriving at the left ventricle to be pumped to the rest of the body. It would take European physicians another 400 years to make the very same discovery. With all of this medical knowledge now spreading across the Islamic world, the need arose to have a way of collecting and categorizing this information. This need led to the creation of one of the most influential works on human medicine of all time, the Canon of Medicine by Ibn Sina. This was a 3-volume encyclopedia of all known medical knowledge, and represented the absolute pinnacle of medical understanding for the time. This book was so influential that it was still being referenced as the ultimate authority on human healthcare 500 years later. I doubt that any medical textbook written in our time will still be relevant in the 26th century. The canon of medicine begins with a comprehensive description of human anatomy, from head to toe, complete with illustrations. It then systematically details every disease known to medical science at the time, along with its causes and treatments, from herbal remedies to eye surgery. This allowed for the standardization of treatment across the empire. Local rulers subsidized hospitals where patients of all religious backgrounds could receive treatment from physicians. These hospitals were the first to contain pharmacies, where herbal remedies were stocked. To test the effectiveness of these medicines, the first clinical trials were conducted, pioneered by the Persian philosopher Al-Razi. Al-Razi championed the experimental approach and was the first to use a control group in clinical trials to provide an unbiased basis of comparison. As a hospital director in Baghdad, Al-Razi stressed the importance of keeping detailed patient records and assessing treatment effectiveness. His practical application of the scientific method to healthcare is representative of the philosophy that guided the medical practice of his age. The Middle Ages were a time of spectacular medical achievement in the Islamic world. Far from being a dark age, the 8th to the 14th centuries brought scientific advancements that would not be matched by Europe for centuries. Physicians of this period like Ibn Nafis, Ibn Sina, and Al-Razi made discoveries that changed how people understood the human body. Their ideas would come to define healthcare for centuries after their death. For these physicians, their profession and their faith were one and the same. They believed themselves to be instruments of Allah's compassion. The healing that they provided was through His grace. Though their practices were quite different from those we use today, the underlying philosophy is the same that governs modern medicine, that we can use science to improve our lives.